Hello, my quilty friends. It's Stacy of Stacy Creates Stuff, bringing you the last video of the year. I created this channel years ago, but didn't really start to create videos on a regular schedule until December of last year, when I decided I was going to vlog every day in December. And I did for most of them, so that's pretty good. And from there, this channel was truly born as a place for tutorials on quilting, embroidery, cross-stitch, various things. It's been quilt focused for the last few months quite heavily, and that will continue. More on that in just a bit. But I thought it would be fun to look back to see what did I do over this past year that I shared with you all. Those early vlogs were a day in the life of an artist and crafter type of things. They weren't great, but at least it was a start of me getting used to being in front of the camera and talking to you. And again, out of all that, this channel was truly born with what it is currently doing. There were a hodgepodge of projects in those early days: embroidery, a little bit of weaving, some sewing. There were a few last-minute Christmas gifts happening last December, and just other various fiber-related projects, as well as organizing my craft room, which was an absolute disaster. I had a few videos where I talked about organizing my fabric, as well as my extensive yarn stash. I swear, I'm a knitter. And my book and magazine collection. All craft related. Let's not even talk about the fiction books I own. But having organized my fabric, I decided to get back into quilting, which is something that I have done for well over 30 years, 35 years, I believe, that I've been quilting on and off, with more veracity at some times and less enthusiasm at others. But I hadn't really done any quilting for the last few years. And so I restarted my quilting journey with a random rail fence quilt project. This was a fun, beginner-friendly, scrap-friendly little project. You didn't have to be precise with your cutting. You started with some squares. Even they didn't have to be that precise. And created this, well, I think, pretty fun artsy piece. And of course, I made a tutorial about how to create the entire quilt. Along those same lines, I also decided to make a crazy cut churn dash, which was a lot of fun. That I used two different shades of fabric. I used white and red. So I had several different whites, several different reds, and threw those together into a little project. That was also a lot of fun. And I decided to revisit a block of the month that I had designed, years ago, 20 some years ago, when I had my quilt shop. But instead of taking an entire year to do all 12 blocks, because that takes too long, I made it a block of the week. And I did that series, having a weekly video here on YouTube. That was a super fun project and really got me back into doing the whole quilting thing, so much so that I went to the local quilt shop to get some more fabric and some inspiration, and came back with not only fabric inspiration, but also a job. I became the Saturday girl at Vintage Pink and Green, not only working in the shop, but also creating original patterns and making them into kits, which of course I share with you here on YouTube. With that, revisiting that block of the month that I turned into a block of the week, I also went through the stack of works in progress that were at this point, well, at least 10 to 12 years old, if not a little bit older. And, well, I finished the pillowcases. The other parts, well, They're still in a pile waiting to be finished, but I think I will be taking some of those and using those as practice pieces for when I get my gammal all set up. So I'm excited about that. Well, that pile of works in progress spurred me to look at some other works in progress in some other fiber arts fields, and I came across my 30-year cross-stitch project, which, whoa, it was 30 years. So, could I get it finished? No, I could not, but I did work on it some. But I wasn't all that excited about it. It didn't thrill me, but you know, it did thrill me, cross-stitch in general. And so I dove down the rabbit hole of Flosstube here on YouTube and discovered so many great Flosstubers and pattern designers. And wow, did that open up a whole new world. And of course, being a designer myself of things, I decided to, of course, design some cross-stitch. So I did finish this project, which was a large pillow. Well, no, small pillow, but a large egg for that was in cross stitch based off of some very old, we're talking hundreds of years old, cross stitch motifs. And I truly enjoyed working on that project. And I designed a few other things. Plus, of course, I bought some other cross stitch patterns. We have a fabulous local cross stitch and needle workshop here in my area called Salty Yarns. And yeah, definitely fell deep down that rabbit hole and have been having a lot of fun. But I haven't touched my cross stitch in probably 6 months. That's about to change. Now, one of the projects that I did tackle during my cross stitch blitz was my first mirabilia. And I did a mirabilia for Mira May, the month of May, work on a mirabilia. They're large projects that tend to take a long time. A lot of people start them and know that it's going to be a long-term project. Well, I worked on it a little bit every single day, and I finished it. Now, it was about the time of finishing that up that I got full on back into quilting. So I had dabbled a little bit, doing the block of the week, doing the churn dash and the rail fence. But now I had become the Saturday girl at Vintage Pink and Green. And I mean, come on. When you're surrounded by beautiful fabrics and you're a designer, the wheels are a-turnin'. My first project for them was to sew together the Tilda whale quilt. So my second quilt for the shop was one that I designed myself based off of the Riley Blake series from their Sea Creatures. I don't remember the name of the series, but I called it Under the Stormy Sea because I set these panels in a storm at sea background. This was a highly popular pattern, and unfortunately, we couldn't get any more of the fabric. So once I made up the kits on the fabric that we had in stock, we were out. But that was exciting, and that really kind of kicked things off. So here are the other patterns and quilts that I designed this year. The ribbon weave. This was off of Wyndham's Ebb and Flow fabric, which I just thought was so beautiful and really needed a quilt that showcased big chunks of this fabric because the patterns were large scale and just very interesting and dynamic. This is what I came up with. For the fall, I designed Interwoven, which I kind of envisioned while I was rearranging fabric and putting them in sort of a rainbow-esque order. But this particular collection, which I believe it was Cottage Cloth by Andover, and it was all in these deep, beautiful autumnal hues. And I thought, oh, these need to be made into an autumnal quilt. And so Interwoven Autumn was designed. Super simple quilt. This is actually a free pattern off of my website, and the link is in the description below. You join a mailing list and you get that pattern. Just a little teaser for next year, there's a spring version coming, whole different fabric collection. As fall was now upon us, I designed a cute little pumpkin quilt. It could be a table runner, placemats. It had a lot of versatility to it. So each little pumpkin has a maple leaf block in the center, and it's pretty easy to put together and super fun, looks really cute. And I just thought it was a nice way to sort of decorate for the fall. Another collection that we had in the shop that I just loved was Cloud Nine's March Balloons collection, based off of the Frank Lloyd Wright March Balloons illustration that he did. And so, of course, I needed to create a quilt that was Frank Lloyd Wright worthy. And so I came up with this one that I called Windows, and it is available in 2 different colorways. The bright colorway, which is the one I sewed together and have the tutorial for, but there is also a water colorway that is more with the blues, greens, and purples. And the next quilt that I designed was in honor of October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and that one is one called Pink Ribbons. I didn't want the ribbons to be the traditional swoop of the ribbon. I wanted it to be a more versatile design that really you could do in other colors. It didn't necessarily have to be an awareness quilt. It could just be a fun play of ribbons trickling down the quilt, and that is what it is. So some of these, there are still kits available at Vintage Pink and Green. Links are in the description below. And some of them are only available as a pattern because we no longer have the kits. Pattern is available from my Etsy shop. Now, these weren't the only quilts that I made. I also made some samples of Tilda quilts, including the whale quilt from her Creating Memories collection, and also the berry wreath quilt, which is from her Hibernation collection. And even though that collection was from last year, we still had some hibernation at the shop, and so I made that quilt. It is beautiful. And I quilted some other quilts as well. I quilted Paper Birds, which my friend Jane made the sample for, and also Whimsy, which we kitted with the Bloomsville collection. Oh, and I also did make and quilt the Cozy Stripe, which I did with Jubilee, plus a few other fabrics from various collections to put that together. Almost forgot about that one, and that one is super fun and fast to make. Kits for all of those are available from Vintage Pink and Green, and I also have tutorials for most of those, plus I have a tutorial for the sailboat quilt, also from the Creating Memories collection, which Jane put together and Judy quilted, but I did a tutorial on it. I almost forgot to mention Jolly in July, which was a month of Christmas crafting that I did with my friend Lauren over at Garden Girl Studio. I did all sorts of crafts. We did embroidery, we did paper crafts, and of course we had some sewing projects. And one of the things I did was an original quilt called Ornaments that I did as a class here locally, an in-person class, but the tutorial for the basic ornament quilt is available as part of the Jolly in July series, and that series is still up on my YouTube channel as well as Lauren's YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out if you want some fun projects that you can use for next Christmas. So the last month or so, I have been working on projects for next year. And I have a lot of things in various stages. I have one quilt top totally done, waiting to be long-armed. That will be coming very soon, early January. And then I am working on a sew along for 2025, which will start in January. Let me just show you the quilt. That will make it much easier. So here I am in front of this work in progress, but it's almost done. This is the width. There's actually a row that will be going above this row, and then of course mirrored down here there'll be a row below that one, and then you have the option to add borders to make it larger. So 2025 will have a lot more quilt tutorials and vlogs about what I've been working on, and I am going to do some knitting. I'm saying it loud and clear here to the YouTube verse. And, well, at the very least, I'm going to show you my knitted swatch collection. It's not as boring as it sounds. And there will be some more organizing because, whew, well, always a work in progress with that. So I would say that 2024 was a fairly successful crafting year. I'm pretty happy with all that I accomplished, and I am looking forward to accomplishing even more in 2025. So I look forward to sharing that journey with you and also those patterns and tutorials. I hope you all have a wonderful new year and that you get a lot of stitching done. Until next time, my friends, bye.